One, two, three. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pucking Mad podcast. Today, we're here with Barrie Archer of the EIHA. Barrie, first, I've just realised as I've introduced this, I'm sorry, because in order to celebrate you coming on, I've decided to dress myself and my background completely in beige. So I apologise for that. It's like pretty...
Michael, you're looking good, mate. You're looking good.
Much,
So don't worry about it. You know,
yeah, a nice lie.
goes with the beard. It's all right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, to be honest, I'm a bit worried about that as well. But I mean, I think we kind of spoke about this just before we began. Anyway, like you're in the process of adding kind of a face to the name. Maybe you could introduce yourself. Like I said, you could do a better job of it than me.
So yeah, I'll just introduce myself to everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm Barrie Archer. I have the pleasure of being the vice chair of the EIHA board, English Ice Hockey Association board, with 5 of my other colleagues. I suppose the best introduction is to tell you all about myself. So, where have I come from? Where's this person suddenly appeared from? So, I've always been a hockey fan. I went to my first hockey game over in Canada when I was in the British Army. I went to see the Medicine Hat Tigers. And then the Calgary Flames back in the late 80s, early 90s. Always been a fan of hockey. I met my wife and I was a Nottingham Panthers season ticket holder. Don't all boo, but I was. Used to sit behind the penalty boxes. Then our lad decided he wanted to play hockey. He wanted to be a netminder. So he started playing, he's 20 now, so got to be 16, 15 years ago. I started off just being a normal dad, turning up at the rink with my wife. And then one day we got asked if we wanted to manage the team, the under-13s, the B team. We said yes, got involved in that quite a lot. I had the pleasure of taking the team. My wife actually was better at it than me. She took them abroad to France and we took on a French team. We got royally beaten, by the way, I have to point that out. But it was fantastic for the kids. And then when I came back, I got more and more involved in hockey. I became a manager or an assistant manager for the Nottingham Lions. I then became the assistant general manager of Nottingham Ice Hockey Club. I did that for a couple of years. Then my son decided he wanted to move clubs. So I went to Hull. When I was at Hull, I honestly said, I carried on managing at Nottingham Lions, then I retired from Nottingham Lions. And I said, that's it, I'm not doing any more. And then I got talked into being the Hull Jets manager, which I was very proud of. In fact, we won the league just before COVID. It was a massive achievement for that club because it is a small club. And then during COVID, this wonderful man, I don't think you probably all know him, is Martin Peters, phoned me up and said, why are you not putting yourself forward to be a director of the EIHA? And I sat and I thought about it. And I'd always been one of these people that sit back and moan about the EIHA. I'd always done it. So I thought, yeah, I'll do it. So I put myself name forward to it. And I've been involved in the EIHA since just after COVID, when we had the closed season that went on. And I've been doing it ever since. I've stood for election a few times and thankfully people have voted for me. So they may not hate me that much yet. So that's my hockey world. That's what I do. As a civilian, I call it a civilian job. I'm ex-army, so I use army language all the time. As a profession, I'm actually a university lecturer. I lecture in policing. So that's my background, really. That's where I'm from.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's nice. And I think as well, I've seen various posts about your PhD.
I've got to be honest. I started in the world of academia quite late. I didn't start till I was about 2016. Actually, I started in the world of academia when I did a law degree. And throughout all my process through academia, I've always bounced back to ice hockey, and I've looked at the violence in the sport. And before everybody jumps down me, I'm not looking to stop fighting in the sport. I'm looking to understand it. That's what I'm doing. So my research centres around the code of the sport and fighting within the game. It relates to work which was conducted back in North America by a guy called Roebuck in 2011, and then recently by a lady called Dr. Victoria Silverwood, who's probably famous for appearing on the Enforcers documentary that was a couple of years ago. So I'm looking at it from a multidisciplinary approach. What I mean by that is I'm looking at it from a legal aspect, and a criminological aspect. So I'm looking at, I'm not trying to, as I say, I'm not trying to get rid of fighting. I'm trying to understand how it works, how people get asked to fight, what the fighters or enforcers, as we call them, how they perceive the sport. So I'm mainly concentrating on the sport here from the EIHA point of view. So from juniors all the way up to seniors and everything in between. I've had some, you would have said, we referred to some of the requirements I've sent out. I've had a number of research options done. I've done a survey through all the players, officials, everybody involved in hockey, really. I haven't touched on fans because that's a different area. And I'm due to start observations soon where I'll be attending a number of games around the country. So if anybody sees me out and about, I'm not in EIHA mode, I'm in researcher mode, but come over and have a chat with me. I'm always willing to chat hockey with anybody. So you'll see me about doing some observations and stuff around the country. But hopefully I'll be looking to produce my work in about 2025, 2026. It's quite a long process, but yeah. So I want to try and be the first one that, well, actually Dr. Silverwood did it first, but I want to be the first doctor of hockey, just for a bit of a change.
Yeah, it's a title and a half, isn't it? That Doctor of Hockey. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
what I want. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Egos expanding as
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that's great. So if we could talk a little bit about kind of the EIHA, like you say, things are going to be coming out, more kind of faces to it. Would it be possible to kind of have a breakdown of the key responsibilities of the board members or vet or
Yeah.
the key people? It might be hard to summarize everyone involved with the organisation.
I think, Michael, I think the thing is to say we're a small board at the moment. We've got 6 members. We've got 2 what we call independent members, directors, sorry. That's Thomas Lilly and Daniel Smith. And then we've got the other directors, which is myself, Gary Aspley, Andrew Miller, and then the chair of the board, Ash Mohammed. And I think everybody knows who Ash is because he used to be a referee. He's been with Ice Hockey UK before and he's been involved in the ring before. So if I go into what we do, and if I get anywhere and you want to stop and ask me questions, Michael, please do.
Thanks.
So the aim of the directors is to have a strategic overview of the different sections, different operating areas of the EIHA. That's our aim. And unfortunately, because we were getting our hockey from, we were kind of rebuilding hockey up back after the pandemic. We've had to be a bit operational at times, but we are moving back to that strategic point of view. So what do the directors on the board do? Right, okay, so let's start from the top. And if I get it wrong, they will shout at me when they listen to this. So let me just try and get it right. So Thomas is our link to the Ice Hockey UK. We are affiliated to the Ice Hockey UK due to the fact of the IHF and how it all works. It's very complicated how it works, but we're affiliated to them. Then Ice Hockey UK go and talk on our behalf at IHF levels, which is the top area. He deals with that and legal matters, including the articles of business, articles of membership, that type of stuff. And he is a sounding board for a lot of things because he's very articulate in that way. Daniel Smith is currently looking at our websites, our strategic position, and it's more of the marketing side of. So if we can start marketing the EIHA, so we can bring in, as a lot of people have asked for on social media, etc., start bringing in some sponsors to help develop this sport further. So that's what he looks at, the strategic side of it. Gary, I think most people know Gary. He set up Sutton Ice Hockey Rink by himself with other people, not just by himself, I should say, with other people. But on the board, he's responsible for education. That's education as in both managers, coaches, and other members of the EIHA. He's responsible for the Elite Pathway, which is the showcase program, the England program. Coaching as well is under his umbrella, and he also looks after wellness and well-being, another section we've set up recently. Andrew, he is the strategic lead for the university section, and which is a massive section, and he's also responsible for the senior hockey within the country. When I say senior hockey, I mean from the National League to NIHL2, both North and South. Obviously, we don't deal with the Elite League. That's on its own information with the Ice Hockey UK. Ash, as well as being chair of the board, he is also responsible for juniors at the moment. He works with JMC to make sure the junior leagues run properly. And then that leaves myself. My overall strategic areas are I look after safeguarding, I look after discipline. I look after the women's section. I say I look after the women's section. I've actually got a really great head of the section, Faye Andrews, but I'm the strategic lead for it. The same with discipline safeguarding. I'm the strategic lead. I also look after para hockey, rec hockey, and I also look after the equality, diversity, and inclusion section. That's where we're looking. We're looking at, and this was my philosophy when we looked at starting it, is that I can stand in most rinks in this country, throw a stone, not at anybody, but throw a stone, and there must be 300 to 500 kids in that area where that stone lands. That I want to know why they're not playing ice hockey. I kind of know the reasons, but that's what that team does. That's looking, and we're looking to bring that on more in the next coming weeks, months, to make sure we're hitting the equality, diversity, and inclusion, to getting more people involved in the sport.
That's great. That's really
But that's how we work at the moment with director wise.
It's quite an interesting thing to hear that, in the way you know, like in terms of bringing people into the sport. Like we said before, it's a minority sport. Bringing people in is the only way this sport's going to grow.
I totally agree with Michael. I think the things, if we widen on it more, the one of the things all the directors and everybody I speak to, we all want to get more people playing this sport. And yeah, some could argue that, and this is not a slant on clubs, but some could argue that clubs just want the players to pay the fees. It's not like that at all. We want more people playing this sport. The only way we can get from under that stone of being a minority sport is to having a higher participation. And I look towards football. Our drawback always is the amount of rinks that are in the country. And each rink we've got, I mean, we've got some really good partnerships with rinks around the country, but there's only a certain amount of slots of ice you can have. You can play football anywhere. Ice hockey, as you know, we need a bit of ice, and it's only safe really to do it in rinks. We haven't got the weather like Canada where they can play it in their back garden. We've got to have the rinks, so we've got to work in partnership with our partnerships and bring them the participation levels higher all the way through. And if we can do that, we can grow this sport. Yeah. And I think it's got bags of potential.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. If we could jump back to something that I've just written down on this piece of paper. It's just about the discipline matter. Obviously, you've got that unenviable job of shouting at people. Yeah, I don't know. You might enjoy it a little bit, but I don't know whether you do.
No, I don't.
So just like kind of a question on sort of, obviously we've had some, like a big ban this season, which obviously, like how is that kind of, how are those bans, the lengths and things like that, how are they decided in terms of, obviously what happened was very serious.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, I can't discuss the actual case because it'd be unfair on the people involved.
Yes.
So let me put it this way. It's dead simple. The old discipline rules a couple of years ago simply said, if you got into a fight, you got a ban of 2 games, and then players were getting much bigger bans, and they were going, hold on, that's not what the discipline policy says. Yes. So we looked at it, and what we did is, and obviously because I come from a legal background, I'm training legal, I'll be honest, I looked across at CPS charging guidelines, and if you ever go and have a look at them, it says, for instance, if you commit a theft at a certain time, there's certain contributing factors to it, your sentence will be higher. So that's all the tariff system really is. The tariff system is this. Let's take fighting, for example. If 2 people stand on the ice and they throw punches at each other, which is deemed a fight, not roughing, deemed a fight, but there's no one hurt, they both agreed to it, it's the minimum tariff, it's tariff 1. If they've had a fight and they've agreed to it, but someone's got a little bit hurt, possibly tariff 2. Or if one of them doesn't really want to fight, tariff 3, we're looking at unwilling combatant. And what I mean by that, I don't mean somebody that decides they don't want to fight halfway through. I mean they do not want to fight. Minimum level, do not want to fight. But it's only 1 or 2 punches thrown. Then as we go through 4 and 5, it's getting more serious. And once you get to level 5, it's the most serious side of it. So it could be serious injury. It could be that it's totally aggressive. Now, the way I'd like to think about it, and the way I talk to other people about it, is that if you were to put those actions on the street, what would a court give you? I'm not suggesting we've got hooligans in the sport and they'll go out and do that, but that's the mentality I go with it. But what I say to everybody is, within the policy, there is an appeals process. So if you feel we've got something wrong, you're willing to appeal to it. Yes, there is a cost. Now, the reason there is a cost is quite simply, I have now gone and engaged a barrister who used to work for the FA and do discipline. That barrister reviews all the cases. And what he does, and this is what I don't think people realise, is that when he does go and look at these appeals, he'll look at it. Not only will he make a decision on the decision that's going on the ice, he'll also look at the discipline team and see if we've done our job properly. And he's criticised some things I've done before, so I've had to make changes. So it is a totally open process for everyone. I'm not hiding behind anything. And as I went to a coaching symposium this weekend, actually, and I said to the coaches, and this is my line, I don't not ban anybody. We don't stop them from doing anything. However, it's the actions of the players on the ice that do that. And all we're doing is relating to that. And we are looking at trying to develop discipline further so that the reviews can, at the moment, only seniors can review official calls, or they can review plays, etc. We are looking at the way that we can do that into the junior side as well, and developing the review area so it's more open for everybody, so everyone understands the process we're going through. But as you quite rightly say, it is a thankless task, and I'm not criticising, because if I wasn't in the EIHA, I'd be doing exactly the same as what the rest of the fans are going, I don't get that. So really, it's good for you to give me this opportunity to say, look, this is how we work. I'm not hiding anything, and I will discuss anything with anybody. I just won't discuss certain cases live on this type of thing, because it's not fair on the people involved.
No.
And I will never discuss under 18s ever. I just don't. They don't get mentioned at all. So I hope that's answered your question, Mike.
No, it certainly has. It certainly has, and I totally understand. So please don't worry. I won't keep pushing.
That's fine.
One thing I will say, obviously in future seasons, there's been a few cases as well this season where possibly people have got heard of bans late, like when traveling to matches and things like that. What's caused that? And also, is there anything in place maybe to speed that up? You mentioned a more open process.
Yeah.
Is there streamlining it, perhaps?
So the way the process works is this. A game takes place on a Saturday. The referee makes a decision on the game of let's say he gives someone a match or a game. Matches aren't usually a problem, because matches, everybody knows, if you get a match, you miss the next game. It's usually when the referee gives a game, we look at it and we go, actually, it's a game, but under the rules, it's a ban as well, because that's the way it goes. Now, some of the instances you're talking about are simply that it's happened on a Saturday, we're waiting for the match report, and we don't get them until a certain time. So we're aware of it, and we want to pass on that information to. I'll be honest, we do it as fast as we can, because we're all, I hate using the term we're all volunteers, but we are. So there is that slowdown sometimes. There have been cases where teams have played players that should have been banned, and it's been our mistake. So I've told them it's our mistake, so we move on from it. But we will try and pass on the information as soon as possible. The rule is usually that if a game takes place on a Saturday and there's no Sunday game, if it's a game on Saturday or Sunday, the match report should be with us on a Monday by about 3 o'clock. It should go to discipline by the Thursday. We should have done or if we've got to check anything, we've got all that done. And by the Thursday, it gets released. Senior players get released on the internet, because the clubs get informed first. Then it gets released on the internet. Under 18s, again, we don't release their information. There have been a few occasions where, unfortunately, with the lack of fixtures live, which I'm no doubt you're going to talk to me about later, we haven't realised that they're under 18, so we've had to crawl it back from the internet. But that's the procedure. That's how it works. And the only slowdown is really the human connection within it. Once we've got the difference of, because we haven't had fixtures live this year, previously we had fixtures live, I could go in and put a red flag on someone straight away.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to do that yet. So it's that communication thing. We did get better near the end of the season. There was a bit of a mess at the beginning. We did get better at the end of the season. But there may still always be those ones there, especially in senior hockey, where they've had a game on the Saturday and a game on the Sunday. We've got to catch back up, and we've got to find a way of doing that better.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. The next question is probably the least sexy question of all time I could ever ask. Is administratively, What was the best, or what went well this season, would you say?
Well, I'm going to surprise you.
Hmm.
I think I'm going to surprise you and your audience. Is that, yeah, okay, let's be honest. Let's put our hands up. Administratively, at some points in this season, it hasn't been good. But it's not all bad. We've had some really good successes. Especially I'm going to use my area because that's what I could talk about the most. In my areas, we've been able to implement and operate some really robust systems within safeguarding and discipline. We've opened reporting channels. We've been able to bring in Vibrant Nation for the DBS in. That's good administrative. And as you quite say, it's not the sexiest subject in the world, but a lot of this administration you won't see is in the background that we've been working hard on. Probably the unsexy stuff that everyone's seen is the fact that we didn't have fixtures live this season. And that has there's no way of getting away from it. It has caused us issues. We've got to hold our hands up and say, look, yeah, it didn't work. It wasn't entirely, I mean, I don't want to be saying as if I'm not blaming ourselves, but it wasn't entirely our fault. But there is areas to be able to build on it. We brought in our new admin team that work out of the office. Now we're the first to do that in this area as a minority sport. Admittedly, it's come from funding from outside of the sport. They've had to find their feet because they're entering into a new sport that they hadn't worked in before. And you know what hockey's like. I can't even say the word, but you know what I mean. Is where there's so much confusion at times in hockey and learning how the teams work. Where you and me will just do it off the top of our heads. They've got to learn it. So we are putting in some good administrative systems in the background that are working. And that has worked. Thing as I say to people now at the end of the season, look, we got a season done. And we've got to be thankful we got a season done. But we've got to be honest to stand up and say, look, the biggest frustration for our members and our clubs was the fact that fixtures live died on us. And that's what we've got to be honest about.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, obviously, you've mentioned the comms situation. But you said about obviously, I think the Spordle, we'll move on to Spordle maybe, because I think this seems to be the root of it. I mean, what went wrong? What went wrong with the Spordle issue?
Right, so let's talk about sport. If I may, Mike, let me take you back to the end of last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know whether you know, but at the end, right, let's get it out. Let's get it out on the table. Fixtures Live has been crashing for 7 years. It was going. When the current board went and took over the EIHA, there were no plans in place to replace Fixtures Live. So we went in straight away and tried to get it for an extra year, which we managed to do. We did then try and get it for this year, while we looked at Spordle in the background, or looked at a replacement system in the background. Unfortunately, when it came to Showcase last year, our statistician was putting information on the computer and another team were playing somewhere else, and it just kept crashing. So Fixtures Live literally died on us. It literally went overnight. So that option of using Fixtures Live for another season was gone. So what we did is we went out and we looked for Spordle. Well, we didn't look for Spordle, we looked for a system. There was a decision made on Spordle because it is used. I think I've seen it on some social media commentary. It is used in North America by quite a lot of countries. Not every club, but quite a lot of clubs do use Spordle. What I will say, start off with, Spordle is written in French and English, okay, because it's Canadian. So we went and looked at Spordle. We took how long it is. We were led by them and how long it take to implement to us the way we operate it. We needed a system that could do game day play and also administer registrations, manage players, coaches, managers, etc. on the system and run a discipline system with it. So we got the system, we made some initial changes to it, and then we started testing it. The board as a whole, we authorised the testing went on, and it turned up a number of issues. So we started asking them to change these certain issues. It won't allow you to have a bench penalty, so you have to put a player in that's a bench. So we continued to look at Spordle. Now, we started training, which was carried out just before Christmas. And our mistake was we kept setting ourselves deadlines that we missed to put it out. So we've got to be honest about Spordle. We've missed the deadlines. We've now got a period in the summer now to make a final decision on where we go with our in-game play system. We need a system that is robust and fit for our purpose. At the moment, our chosen provider is Spordle. That's our chosen provider. But that doesn't mean that if we decide that Spordle's not going to meet our requirements, we won't go and look for something else. But as a board, we've all sat there and said, we need a system in place, up and running by August for the next season. We cannot have another season like this. I will say that I think the office have done a fantastic job on the bits they've had. But at the same time that we had the Spordle issue and Fixtures Live going down, we had kind of a tsunami of everything that happened out because we lost our fixtures person. So we've had to take on that as well. So, yes, I get that, what people have been saying about Spordle. We are still working with it. It is our preferred supplier, and that's what we'll continue to look at for the next few years. And hopefully, I'm not going to say hopefully, we will have a system in place by the 1st of August so that we can start our new, I'm saying the 1st of August for our new season. So we've got something, but we need something in place for that.
Yeah, cool.
That's what we're saying.
Yeah, brilliant. If we can move on and talk a bit about the future of hockey, because this is obviously, like you say, you want more kids playing, which I think ultimately is the be all and end all when it comes to this. Where do you see, or like where from the board's perspective, where does the board see the future of hockey? Where's it going? Things like that.
Well, we've got to be realistic with hockey in this country at the moment. We've got to be realistic. We are still in recovery phase. We are still recovering from the pandemic. And I know I keep saying that, and it's not an excuse, it's just true. As you're aware, we played some games against Denmark last season, under 23s, where we got kids that had, I say kids, they were all men, but kids that came and played hockey that probably hadn't been in the England programme, or they've done the outskirts of the England programme. And they did us proud. Yes, we lost the games, but it wasn't about winning. It was about seeing where we are. And it was reported back to us from the Danish coaches and management team that we're probably 10 years behind them. And they're a smaller country, but they play more ice hockey than we do. So where do I see British ice hockey? I think we're very dependent on the numbers we've got playing this sport. We need to improve our participation. We need to get more people playing, and we need to give players the opportunity to show their skills. Hence why we changed conference to the showcase. The whole thing, the whole ethos to the players is, and I know we say it's not about winning or losing, and people start saying, "Oh, we'll get turning American and all that." But bear with me on this. What we want the kids to be able to do is come for that weekend, play hockey, and demonstrate their skills, demonstrate how good they are, so that the England coaches sat in the stands and the GB coaches that have been invited to sit in the stands can see the talent we've got coming. We're then moving towards the England elite pathway, the England program, because that's a natural process. Now, Gary, I'm going to sing Gary's praises here. Without Gary, there wouldn't be an elite pathway. There wouldn't be an elite program. He's been fantastic. What he did when he came and looked at it, he looked at it and said, well done. We're picking, say, 20 players to play for England. Why aren't we picking 40 and having 2 teams at the lower ages so we can still develop people? We've sent children recently this season across to Quebec to play. And for the first time, we sent a girls team, which is a major step forward for us as an organisation. But in Quebec, we did well. The girls did brilliantly. The boys did brilliantly. They're under 13s. It's one of the toughest competitions in ice hockey for juniors. And they really did well. In June, we've got more teams. In fact, every weekend in June, we've got a team going over to Bratislava to play in the Bratislava tournament, where our GB under 16s have just been, admittedly at a higher level, which I think they finished 9th. So we're going over there to see where we've got. And what we've got to do is keep pushing our youth higher. And the problem we have with it is that because we've got a small pool to pick from, we need more players to be able to play that way. And I'm going to say something controversial. Whilst I love Liam Kirk to bits, and I'm really chuffed he got picked, he got the EIHA draft. I'm absolutely chuffed for him. It's put Great Britain on the map, really has. But it's actually been a hindrance as well, because everybody thinks we can do it year in, year out. But we need to. What we want to see is that we've got 10 going every year to the draft, and because that's where we'll see ourselves develop. There are players, and Michael, I'm sure you know lots of players the same as I do, that aren't far off it, and there are some kids coming through that are absolutely fantastic. But we've got to give them the ability to be able to play hockey. And when it links back into the other side of it, is you can link it into kind of discipline as well. We've got to become more of a European playing style of hockey, in that we're looking for style, we're looking for skill. We're not looking for bashing each other off the boards at 14. We're not looking for that. We're looking for your skill and your style. So if I answer the question really, I think EIHA is very important in supporting that role, and that's where a lot of the funds go towards. I'm a bit of a penny pincher. I hate to spend money because I see it as the kids' money. So I'm very strict on where we spend money. But Gary has done an absolutely fantastic job getting through. I've been to a couple of the camps as well. I go and visit them as well. And I'm watching kids now, 12, 13 years old, and they're impressive, very impressive. And I think we're going the right way. I think we also need to be aware that we need to change our mentality towards, we need to see our hockey players as athletes and not just as the good old fashioned hockey player. You know, you go and play a game, you have a beer afterwards, not kids though, but adults have a beer, kids go and drink soda pop. What we're looking now for is the complete athlete. They're interested in strength and conditioning. We're looking that they can be a good person, because that's what we want to be. We want a good person, because if they're a good person, they're coachable. And if they're coachable, they can achieve more. And that's where we've got to go to. One of the things that used to really annoy me prior to joining the EIHA was the fact of nepotism. Everybody used to say you had to get on really well with coaches, you had to do this, you had to do that to get your kid anywhere. I hate that with a passion. And that's what we're getting rid of. We're getting rid of that now. It's the case of that we overlook everything. There's a rationale of why that player has been chosen. And we need to be open about it and say, look, we do go through a proper process. We're bringing on some really good coaches. The coaches are developing brilliantly. Gary, again, has redeveloped the coaching side of it and brought it in line with the associate coaching area, where we have a foundation coach, an assistant coach, and a team coach, and they can learn their own areas. But if we've got more and more coaches buying into it, it's not just about developing the players, it's developing the whole infrastructure for everybody so that we are more professional. And I think the way I say this is dead simple, is when I went to one of my teams that I've managed and I was asked to manage, I said to them, I'll do it, but I want it to be professional. And I was still a great believer of the little things of making it, the atmosphere professional, the product on the ice becomes better. And if you go and watch GB now and you go and see the setup, which I've been lucky enough to see, it's very professional off the ice and it's very professional on the ice. And that's what we've got to pass all the way down. And if we can do that, I think the future's bright. Do I think it'll happen tomorrow? No. Within 5 years, 10 years, we will be back up there. And GB, I want to see GB at the Olympics. And I want to see a team that is full of kids that I've watched come through the EIHA, through our system to get there. And I think that's what we all want, really.
Yeah, I would agree, actually. When it comes to that sort of setup and bringing kids through, naturally safeguarding and making sure that kids are suitable to play with adults is a really difficult topic. It's something that I think it's very hard to do. Is there anything that can be done to finesse that system when you have a kid that maybe is good enough to play, that can go up, rather than the more rigid system we have now?
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, Michael. Yeah, I think the simple fact is this, is that to be able to play senior hockey, you've got to be a certain age for insurance purposes. It's not just safeguarding. It's a combination of both. It's safeguarding and insurance purposes. We have looked at, if a kid's good enough, should he? Because going back in the old days, under 14s used to play at senior. I get that. The problem we have with kids playing up, and I'm not just going to go into senior, but kids playing up, the problem we have with kids playing up, and again, I'm not criticising anybody at all, is that sometimes the pressure on a child to play up when they're not mentally ready. They could be physically ready, but they're not mentally ready. And if they go and play that first game and they get hit and they get injured, or they don't like, you know what I mean, don't like it, whether we've lost them from the sport. So there's got to be really careful consideration about when juniors start playing senior hockey. And I think it's a conversation that's going to continue for a while. Because as you know, there are kids out there that are 14, 15. I'm going to use one, Jack Hopkins. Everyone knows Jack Hopkins. He plays for Nottingham Panthers. I've known him since he was about 10 years old. Could he have played senior hockey earlier than he did? Possibly. Was it right he went through the pathway that he did? I would argue yes, because he's now an all-round player. I've watched him go through different stages. He started off with Nottingham Lions as a 16-year-old, and then he moved across to Telford, did a really good job there. Now he's back at Panthers and MK Lightning, and he's doing a cracking job. So you're absolutely right, Michael. We've got to look at each player, and we've got to make a decision of how we're doing it. But at the moment, it's got to be pretty rigid to ensure the safety of those children. And because we forget sometimes they are still kids. I'll be honest with you, Michael, my lad started playing adults under 16. He was in goal straight away under 16. So, but it's an ongoing conversation we've got to have. And we've got to look at the empirical evidence that comes out from other areas to see where we go with it.
Yeah.
A lot of other countries are now saying that children should remain in child sport for as long as possible before they step up. But safeguarding wise, we can sort that easily. Clubs are quite amicable these days.
Great. If we could move on and talk kind of finally about the teams individually and the leagues themselves. This is quite a controversial one, and I just hope that people don't so I won't name any teams because it's happened a few times, I suppose. But kind of individual accountability when it comes to teams missing matches, things like that. You know, it's again, there has to be some leeway, I'm sure, because like we said, it's a minority sport, particularly when you get to regional leagues. What can be done? Is there anything? Oh, have I lost you? Yeah.
I kind of paused there, but I get where you're going with it,
Yeah.
Michael. It's all right. I think it's my connection. I do apologise.
No, don't worry.
I think you're absolutely right. There needs to be accountability. There needs to get to a point where the EIHA are the governing body. We make clear rules, regulations that are in place so that it's clear to a team that if they decide not to attend a game for no other reason than they can't get there or they don't want to go or little Jimmy's not sick, that there is a rule in place that covers that eventuality. We've started to do this with, as I've said, with my own areas of safeguard and discipline, and we are looking at putting more robust rules and not robust, more easier to understand guidelines and rules that are in place that clear up the differences that take place. Because there's nothing worse as a club for a team not to turn up when you've paid for the ice, and we understand that financial implication on teams and to fans as well. If you look at the senior level, I mean, it doesn't happen so much in the senior side, but in the juniors, it happens quite a lot. So, yes, we need to have some robust regulation in place. We are currently, because we're coming to the end of the season, every season we look at our new rules and regulations for the next season and we take them to our AGM. So there will be a new set of rules and regulations for the AGM, which is due in July. And yes, you're absolutely right. We need to have it that we are governing correctly, fairly, and that everybody knows where they stand from when we start.
Yeah, cool. One kind of final thing to talk about, and it's something that can either go one way or the other. We'll talk forever, or we'll talk very briefly about it. We've got teams like Solway Sharks, who are an example of what of what we really want to see across the board. No disrespect to the great work done at any other team, but like they are, I'd say, top of the tree when it comes to the development. Should they be given the crack at the next league? Can they be good, in your opinion?
Right, I'm going to start off with straight away by saying this. Solway, what an absolutely fantastic year they've had. Yeah. I mean, they've done the quadruple, I think they've done. Yeah. Are they a cracking team? Yes, no doubt about it. They're a cracking team. Have they done a brilliant job up there? Brilliant. Can't knock it. Absolutely fantastic. Do we want more teams to be with them? Yes, we do. And I think there are some other teams in that league that are coming through. They're going through rephasing size at the moment. Billingham, for instance, I think are on the up. They've had a restructuring for the last couple of seasons. Whitley Bay probably had a bad season this year in their own books. I don't think they did. I think they had a cracking season. And there are other teams in there that are fighting through. Should they go up to the National League? I think it comes down to what they want themselves. I don't think we as an organisation, because of financial risks, I don't think we as an organisation can force a certain team to go up to another level, because at the moment there are no promotions or regular relegations between the leagues. Do I think they'd survive up there? I think they'd give it a go. I think they would give it a go. I think you could say the same about when Nottingham Lions went up to the NIHL 1. And I use Nottingham because obviously I know a bit about them. But they went up and they've battled. Everyone used to laugh at them because they lost every game. Now they're starting to win a few. People are starting to look the opposite way. The difficult one with it all the time is I've heard this top, and I'll go back to a team that I managed. I managed Hull Jets. When we won the league at COVID, everybody turned around to us and said, I'm not saying this is the same at Solway. Everybody turned around to us and said, should you go to Division 1? Now, me being the sportsman that I am, I was like, oh yeah, let's go play in Division 1. Realistically, could I afford it? Could the team afford it? Could the club afford it? No, they couldn't afford it because of the expenditure. There is a massive jump between the leagues in expenditure.
Yes.
So, for instance, for Solway, and I don't know the figures, I'm just going to guess at them. Solway, for instance, there's about 60 games in the National League. They're going to play 30 games away. Their furthest game is right down south somewhere. It's probably about a 7-hour travel. And it's not about the travel. I think teams should travel anyway. I'm just saying about costs. I worked it out the other day that it probably cost them about 60 grand in coaches. So they've got to find 60k to start off with. I know they're brilliant at recruiting. They've got some really good kids coming through. I noticed there's a few of them retiring out this year. If I put my manager head on, do I risk all that to go up to another league, or do I stay where I am and give my fans a product? I don't know. I'm not in their shoes. But should they have a crack? Well, that's something they can have a chat with. We're open to open conversations. Is that people can go and have a chat and they can talk to each other. So be a conversation between themselves and the NIHL management group about how they work it. But I think they've had you cannot take nothing away from them this season. In fact, this season, the season before, they've had an absolutely cracking season. But it's not just them. There are other teams around the country that have done really well. But we have a really weird thing in this country. Whatever league you look at, be it National, NIHL 1 North, NIHL 1 2 North, South teams, NIHL 1 South, NIHL 2 South. If you look at the group of teams that are in that league, you will always have teams that have got a bit of money because they've got a fan base. You'll have ones that are middle ground, and you'll have ones that are getting buying a packet of cheese and onion crisps and a bottle of Coke. But they are. That's the way it works. And that's the way the sport works at the moment. So Solway may have had a cracking season this year, but next year we don't know. They might, with movement of players, etc. Other teams have seen how they play. They want to play differently. But I don't have a problem with anybody applying to move up to higher leagues. I know that none of the board directors do. It's a conversation that has to take place. And what you've got to remember is when you go into another league, it's got to be based around costings of the other teams as well. National League's a bit different from NIHL 1 and 2 because National, really, if we're really honest about it, it's a professional league. It's one tier down from a league, isn't it? And because it's EIHA, I would say it's probably one of the most exciting leagues in the country because anybody can beat anybody on a given night. But yeah, I'm open for anybody moving around, and I was very pleased. Not that I'm biased, not biased at all. But when I was at the finals, I was watching it, and it was a cracking game at Coventry the other day. It was absolutely. I purposely went on the Sunday so I could watch that game, and it was a cracking, absolutely brilliant advert for the sport in this country.
Yeah, definitely is. That's a good point. When are the highlights out? Because unfortunately I missed it. I had some drama.
Do you know what, Michael? You've caught me on a hop there because I don't have a clue. I've got to be honest. I don't have a lot to do with NI. No, that sounds bad. We all do overlook each other. We help each other out, but I don't know. I honestly don't know when the highlights are out. But hopefully they're soon because it was a cracking weekend. The finals I watched on the Sunday were unbelievable. Really good hockey.
Yeah.
And that Kieran Brown, something special.
Yeah. Another level.
He's something special.
Yeah. No, it's amazing when you think about it, isn't it? The talent that's being produced is incredible. And it's great.
Do you know what, Mike? I think that's one thing we have to take away from. Okay, we all. I mean, as a mark of measurement within ice hockey throughout the world, it's how many players you get to the NHL draft.
Mm-hmm.
We've had one recently, which is with Liam. I argue we could have had some more, but things didn't go that way. There are some other kids that I think could get there, but we're a country they don't really look at, really. So we want to keep our talent in this country. We want to play good hockey, and that's the way we've got to develop it. The EIHA. I think we should measure our skills and our abilities by the standard of the game that's played. And if you look at some of the final games and some of the games, I went to an NIHL 2 game, which wasn't my son's team, it was a different team. And I went and watched it, and it was a cracking game. Yes, it was an NIHL 2 standard, but it was a really good game. And 40 kids came off that ice, having played a brilliant game. And I think as long as we're filling the pads at a weekend with full teams, that's what we're doing. And we keep looking at building that elite pathway.
Yeah, really great. Barrie, I won't take any more of your Thursday evening. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really
No worries at all, Michael. It's been a pleasure.